in recovery and in the rooms and in the communities, we are not supposed to be the judge and the jury. And that's what people are doing. We are judging and we are being the jury and we're convicting people. And it's like, we came here to learn, to love, and to heal. And we're judging every single thing somebody's doing.
So that's our guest, Rachael, with Adequate Purpose. Rachael and I have become quite close friends throughout our recovery journey and as a fellow content creator. This conversation's been a long time coming. I'm really, really glad that we had it. She's one of a kind. She's got this incredible energy that's absolutely contagious, and it's what drew me to her in the first place. In the meantime, the title sponsor for today's episode is FAR Canada. That's Families for Addiction Recovery. They're an amazing service. They focus on the families and the loved ones of people who suffer from addiction, which of course is really close to our core values at the Ashes to Awesome podcast. So check them out, guys. They offer peer-to-peer support system, a group for people that are in a similar situation. And of course, they advocate very, very hard on the back end for changes that they'd like to see as far as policy goes at a government level. So you can learn more about them at farcanada.org. And in the meantime, enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, watchers, listeners, supporters of all kinds. Welcome to another episode of the Ashes to Awesome podcast. I'm your host, Chuck LaFlange, checking in from Krabi, Thailand, of course, halfway around the world. In Tennessee is my beautiful guest, Rachael from Adequate Purpose. How you doing today, Rachael? Hey,
happy to be here. Excited, joyful, ridiculously happy, as always.
As always, that vibe though. Peek behind the curtain. It's actually been coming for a long time. I've been trying to get you, nailed down, but of course, we both got busy lives. Maybe you somewhere more so than myself, but
add ADD to that.
Yeah, and
remembering.
Yeah, this conversation brought to you by ADHD, right? It's one of my hashtags nowadays, I think, right? So, you know what? We're going to talk about a bunch of things, but I'm going to talk about ADHD real quick, just to kick this off. And maybe this is something you can relate to, or maybe not. So I didn't even know that I had ADHD, not for my whole life, right? When I was 17, and I'm 47 now, so about 30 years ago, my mom had said to me once, that she saw on the news there was 15 symptoms of ADHD. I don't know if you remember this when it was out. You're not as old as I am, so maybe not, but it was a big news story for quite a while. It was kind of became a thing where, and if you have 8 of these symptoms, you might want to go get checked for, and assessed or whatever. And she's like, you've got a lot more than 7, so maybe you want to check that out. And I was like, I don't have it. That was literally the last time I thought about it until I got sober. And I was a stimulant user, right? Never into opiates. And then I was with a friend's wife who, whatever, we were driving along and she's like, you don't think you have ADHD? Of course you do. Of course you do. And that's why stimulants were your friend for so long, right? Coke, the meth, because it works as ADHD meds, right? I was like, right. Oh my God. Oh, you're right. Right. And then since then, of course, I've been assessed or whatever, but there's a big part of me that for a long time wished I didn't even have that conversation, wished I didn't know. Because what it did for me was in my recovery, things are getting tough, the chaos, and ADHD is funny. We all know that. But then there's that side of it that isn't so funny that we don't have a ton of TikToks about, where it's like I spend pretty much all day pissed off at myself, and that gets old really fast, right? I'm sure you can relate to how frustrating it can be, right? And so then I'd be sitting there thinking, I am $40 a phone call away from relief from this, right? It was the closest temptation to relapse that I've experienced in my recovery was knowing that I had ADHD and knowing that a $40 bag would make it go. I would have I'd have some respite from the chaos, from being pissed off at yourself all the time. So I don't know if you can relate to that, but that was kind of my experience until I got my hands on some medication and I was able to help myself out that way. Right. But
no, it was definitely for me, I got diagnosed as a kid, but my dad wouldn't let us do medicine, which was fine. And it was school was always a struggle. And it's still today. I'm all over the place. And I tried the medicine route and then I quickly started to abuse them. I loved it very quickly. Yeah. I mean, I did very good for about 2 months. And then I was like, man, I could work for 24 hours straight if I just take one every 3 hours. And now I was back on that. That was my journey.
So it did lead to relapse in a different route than what I was talking about, but it absolutely did, right? So
100%
that's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah. And it did, but I abuse everything I can get my hands on, So now I wouldn't say I'm pissed off. I get annoyed. with my 7,500 open tabs, but at least I remember now to look at them when I can. And like, I now have mastered putting my keys in the same place. I'm mastering holding my coffee cup. I mean, I don't lose my phone or my keys anymore. And that took a very long time of like really getting sick of losing my keys and being late for work. Like that is such a real thing. But I'm still all over the place, still totally unorganized, still make 700 to-do lists and never look at them because they're in 700 different places. And I've just learned to accept me for who I am.
I just love how people are like, you need to make a list. Oh, okay, because I know where there's a pen. Like, come on, just settle down, Fireball, with your lists. Okay, right?
Yeah. What do I do with my list? Remember to look at the list because I have 700 of them. They're everywhere. I've posted here and here, and it's in my pocket. And it's no. ADD people don't have lists.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm sorry. We have 700 lists.
Right. Yeah, I won't even, I just don't bother, right? I just don't bother because, and honestly, I couldn't tell you where there's a pen. No, not a clue, right? So.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It really is. It really is. But so you found other ways to mitigate that then? Is that just trying to discipline yourself to a point, like, and through repetitiveness or?
Definitely disciplining. I'm eating better. And I found that eating better definitely helps as well. I mean, I do drink a ton of coffee, but I think coffee's supposed to help with that. I don't know. Maybe that's maybe
it's a stimulant, right?
Yeah.
Coffee is a stimulant. So yeah, of course it does, right?
Yeah.
But it's funny you said that because I was just going to hone in on your love of coffee might have something to do with.
I do. I love my morning coffee. It's ridiculous.
Of course, I know this about you, and maybe the listeners obviously don't, but I know for myself, being in Thailand, if I run to 7-Eleven and grab like a double shot of espresso out of a can, it's like I get 2 or 3 hours, maybe a half a day of like extreme productivity.
Yeah.
Right. Like, because it helps me focus so much. Right.
Yeah, it does. It makes my whole day better.
Absolutely. Right. I don't drink it every day like I used to, but maybe I should be. Maybe that would help. Right.
Yeah.
Because the thing in Thailand, the drug of choice here is meth and another, like a spin-off of meth called Yaba.
Yeah, you're saying that.
And that's done is it's made for anything stimulant based for medication to become very, very hard to get, right? The government looks at anything stimulant as bad now.
Yeah.
So it's made it all but impossible. Not impossible, just there's a lot of barriers, right? Relative to what they would be at home, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't need a prescription for penicillin or Viagra, but you like to get your hands on some Ritalin is a really hard thing to do here. So,
I'm sure. Right? I think that's worldwide now that people have just abused it everywhere. Because I mean, even here in the States now, it's more so over the last 5 years. You can't get it either here.
Yeah, right.
But you would think in Thailand it would be like, and this is very naive, so someone may get pissed off at me for saying it, but you would think in Thailand it'd be like being in Mexico or South America, where like you just assume hop the border and you can go get whatever you want. But I think
it's very different here, right? Yeah, Thailand's it's not the same as a lot of other countries, especially like South America is very different than Asia is, right? A little more control here, I think, than a lot of South American countries. I don't know. That's maybe speaking to more than what I do know. So I should probably get back on track. But,
I'm like, I don't know anything about it. So don't get mad at me. This is just like, I don't know. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's certainly not like that here at all, right? Yeah. Hey, before we get too far into the episode, I got to mention our special sponsor for today is the Yatra Trauma Center here in Krabi, Thailand, where I reside. For those of you that aren't familiar with my platform, that is where I started my healing journey when I got to Thailand. I was fortunate enough to experience their residential treatment program. I went through that. I got to tell you, life-changing, absolutely one-of-a-kind facility in the world. They treat trauma. They do it very, very, very well. And if you want to know more about them, you can check them out at a2apodcast.com/trauma. And back to the show. There's a lot of misconceptions about Thailand. Thailand is the only country in this part of the world that was never colonized.
Oh, wow. Right?
So it's very interesting. It's a very different country than even other parts of Asia, right? So because you don't have that European influence here, like you do in literally everywhere else in Asia, every other country except Thailand. And there's kind of some neat stories about that, but we won't get into that. But anyway. Yeah. What are you passionate about? You're passionate about homelessness, right? What do you do? Let's start out with how long have you been in recovery? Let's tell your recovery story instead of your addiction story. And then I'm going to interrupt it and be kind of rude about it because that's what I do. And we'll go from there. How's that sound? Yeah.
Sure. No, okay. I love, and we had talked about this on the pre-show. When people share their story, you get an hour segment of time, and it's usually about 40 minutes of the war story, the trauma, what
The
got
blood
you
and
there.
guts,
And
all
then
that
you
stuff,
get
right? Yeah.
20 minutes, and somebody like me I'll be 7 years by the grace of God, July 30th of this year. And so I've got 7
Congratulations.
huge,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
It still blows me away. It blows me away that I'm turning 45 this year. I'm like, that's insane.
Okay.
I
So
just realized I was turning 45 and I'm having a hard time with it.
I was just saying, well, you're younger than me, right? But
Yeah.
I thought you were much younger than me. I didn't realize you're only 2 years behind me. So
Say
there
that
you go.
again.
Right?
You what? You what?
I
You thought
totally
I was what?
I thought you were mid-30s. I didn't think you were mid-40s, right? Yeah, I had no idea. So
44
yeah, hey,
and
looking good for
Thank you.
mid-40s. Yeah, right. Yeah.
I realized, I just did the math. I thought I was turning 44 this year. And when I realized it was 45, I was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? 45. Look at this. The wrinkles are here. They're starting. My eyesight's starting to go. I'm definitely like, this is real now. All the things
I
that
understand.
start happening.
Yeah.
But so I found recovery, I think, when I was 36, 37.
Okay.
And so for the last 7 years, I have been able to just find my passion. So when I was I've always been like a people person and a lover and have that servant heart. So even like active in my addiction, I was always I was doing good by helping keep everybody high for cheaper or for free. Meanwhile, people were like, Rachel ruined my life because she was always showing up with the drugs. And I'm like, I was just bringing them for free. I thought that we all just, I had no idea I ruined your life, right?
Here comes Rachel, the meth fairy, sprinkling that shit around
everywhere. I'm like, who needs a hotel room? Who needs a this? Who needs a whatever?
I can hear now. Good morning.
I thought I was being a great person, right? And the streets ate me up because I've always just been nice.
Yeah.
And when I found recovery, it was like when I found it for the real this time, like I've been trying to get sober since I was 2007. Like a grace of God, when I got pregnant with my first child, I stopped doing meth, cold turkey, all the things. And I was able to stay off of the drugs for a couple of years. But I ended up going back because I didn't work a program, didn't find a higher power, just kept doing all the things that kept me sick. So when I found recovery this time, I wanted to help other women and men, my friends, find recovery too. And so I became very, very passionate at helping people get into programs. And I was living in Utah prior to here. And so I literally had dedicated my life to finding whatever resources were out there that maybe would have helped me not have to suffer for so long. So how did we get people on Medicaid? How did we get people into detox? What was sober living? What did that look like? How do we get payer funding or all these different kinds of funding? And that became my big passion because I'm just a helper. Like I just want to help people. I also learned that I'm a helper to a fault. So,
people pleasing.
I've also learned I can't get you sober for you. I can provide the resource, but you need to make the calls. You need to do the fundraising. You need to because I was doing all this fundraising. I'm calling everybody. Do you have a bed? Do you have a bed? I got a guy. I got a this. I got a that. And then it was like all these things would happen, and these people weren't ready. They didn't show up. And so, I mean, that took years. People said you got to learn. People got to put skin in the game, and I started to really understand that. Because when you're buying everybody a bus ticket and when you're doing all these things, and I'm working a full-time job and that as a free full-time job, it was like something had to give. But
it's not sustainable, right? It's just not, right? So
if you're crazy, if you want to burn out, if you want to go into burnout, and you have to learn those things. And so my passion has become 100% helping the recovered addict maintain their recovery, but also helping those on the streets and if homelessness, going boots on the ground into the homeless camps, going to wherever to offer love, to just go and hug people, show them that they matter, and try to help them find like plant that seed. Today I'm just planting the seeds. I'm not sprinkle fairy meth everywhere. But helping people is, I would say, is my biggest passion.
No kidding.
And I'm good at it.
I love that. I love that you said helping the recovered addict. Or addict in recovery, I guess, is the language we're supposed to use, right? Whatever.
Person in recovery.
Person in recovery. There you go, right? Yeah. Less we get attacked by whatever community, right?
I know.
Yeah. And there's a conversation there, and we'll touch on this because I just did an episode yesterday, by the time this airs, a few days ago. And a part of that conversation was about mandated treatment, which is like a hot topic these days. I don't know in the States if it is so much as it is in Canada, but very hot topic. And what you had said is, about people need to be ready. And I'm kind of that language, and not the way you said it, Rachel, to be clear, right? But there's a thing that happens there where there's somebody who's in the throes of a serious opiate addiction does not have use of their prefrontal cortex, the part of their brain that controls our decision making.
Sure.
Right? Like, and we know that through brain imaging, where it's just scientific fact now, right? Which backs up the addiction as a disease argument and those things, because the front of their brain is turned off. They are incapable of making good choices, right? So to say that somebody has to be ready, that gets us into the mandated treatment argument. And it's like, well, but how can you be ready if your brain isn't working? Like, how can that person be ready, right? And that's not to say that we should run around putting all the addicts in a van and running them off and locking them up in treatment somewhere. It's very much not that. But just as harm reduction is what a lot of people need, I think mandated has to be one of those tools in the toolbox, right? So, because it's just, there's a spectrum of people with different degrees of this disease and different factors, things that are way outside of, our awareness or most certainly our control. But I think there's an argument to be made for it. And how do you feel about it? Or, yeah.
Listen, I tried to get sober. Technically, my very first treatment center I went to, I was 15 years old. Okay. So, I mean, if we go into like, how long have I been trying to get sober? From 15 to 36 or 37, whichever one of the two.
Let's call it 20. Let's call it an even
20 years, right? Yeah. I mean, and I wanted, like, I was forced to go to rehab. I was forced to go to jail. I was forced to do programs. And all of those times, like, I didn't think I had a problem. And so it was like, did I learn a ton of things from them? I have said my whole entire adult life, like, I probably survived the streets because of the things that I learned in treatment, and not the bad things, learning all the, like, when you go to jail and you meet the bad people, right. I did plenty of that. I think I learned some survivor skills through that, but I didn't think it was bad enough. And that's what, like, mandated treatment can work. Like Camille in our group chat, she went to jail once at like 19, 20 years old, and she's been 13 years sober now. Like, that scared her enough.
Yeah.
Jail didn't scare me. I just hated it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. Yeah.
The mandated thing, yes, I think it can be great. But if the person doesn't see that they have a problem, they're just going to talk the talk to get themselves out of it. More than likely, that's what I did. I mean,
fair enough, right?
Finally, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I wanted to see my kids, and all the things where it was like, I have a problem. I want to get better. Because it's also a don't tell me what to do kind of thing, right? Don't tell me what I need to do. So you go to rehab.
That is kind of the common argument for it. And I don't mean to generalize what you're saying, because your journey is yours. It's unique. And it's
you're not generalizing. You're fine.
Quite frankly, it's incredible. But so even me, and I've only got 19 months in now. But so even me, because I wasn't on opiates, sorry. And yourself too, like, you're a stimulant person, right? If I remember your story correctly, right?
Yeah.
Or anybody that's been sober for longer than 5, maybe 10 years at the outside has never experienced what's happening right now with fentanyl.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So like when you see somebody bent over and half sideways on the streets, who's dirty and unkept and those things, and who gets Narcan and immediately goes to get high again after
awful.
dying and being brought back to life, immediate, like seconds, like I need to get high right now. To tell me that we're going to wait for that person to tell me they're ready or that they have capacity to even make that choice for themselves, they don't.
No.
Right. So, and that's where I think, again, in a lot of cases, no, right. It's not the thing you need. In a lot of cases, maybe some harm reduction to get there. Maybe we're just going to wait it out, whatever. Right. But in some cases, it's the thing that we need to do, I think. And the challenge is that it's been so polarized, right? You're either harm reduction or you're at this extreme other end of it, or abstinence, 100% abstinence, right? But the thing is, different people are somewhere else on that, on a different scale. So,
well, and I'll tell you this, like, so when my journey started when fentanyl was getting popular, because we were like, when I was peddling pills, the people would ask me, are they pressed with fentanyl? Or are they the other ones? And I'm like, I mean, I can get you both. They're like, get the fetty ones. So it was definitely, I know I'm alive today because I went to jail and I would be dead. I was going to federal prison and God got in the way. But I would be dead. And it's crazy because when I'm out there on the streets and we're doing the homeless camp, those exact things you talk about, these people are like, yes, I want to get saved, right? I'm ready. But they're so freaking scared of the unknown. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, I'll go to treatment, but what am I going to do after? Then what? Give me treatment.
Right.
Where am I going after 30 days? And nobody wants to do a 1-year program. So, I mean, I get it. I understand.
Right. And so there's another, let's bounce into that. You do all this work to get somebody from the streets and into treatment, like helping them, through your outreach or whatever, just being there for when they're ready, whatever. They get into treatment, and then what? Right? You just touched on that. Like, what happens after treatment?
If they even stay, like I always have this thing. It's like getting somebody to treatment is like getting somebody to say yes to go to detox is like getting engaged, right? It's like, it may happen. Getting somebody to go to detox and stay for the 7 days, they got married. Getting somebody to go from detox into treatment, they made it to their honeymoon. You know what I mean? I'm like, these are just some rare things.
I love that.
And that's so sad. But it's scary.
It's a great metaphor for sure for the entire process, right?
It's scary.
And of course, the system is very different in the United States than it is in Canada, right? With our healthcare system. So there's all the cost, right? Like, do you have insurance, private pay? There's all that stuff that's involved, right? Which is brutally hard to navigate as I understand it, right? So people like yourself with some knowledge about those resources are so important, right? In that outreach. So are you able to talk about work? What you're doing exactly?
Sure.
Yeah. What are you doing at work? Yeah.
So I work for this really amazing company. It's called Firsthand, and we are like United Healthcare pays us to give people in recovery from serious mental illness. And then the things that follow, and people who are abusing the ER because of their mental illness, the job is to help them find recovery. And we only target people on receiving Medicaid. So we're getting the forgotten about people. Some of them are homeless. We thought we were going to have more homeless, but in Tennessee, the stipulations to be getting Medicaid are so hard. It's just whatever. But
there's another issue, right? Yeah.
Right. Right. And then trying to get these guys, if they're on Social Security, how do you get somebody that's getting Medicare into a treatment program? Because nobody will take them because they don't have treatment provider. It's so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, there's just,
I'm kidding. Barriers, and more barriers, right?
But on peer support is what my job title is, like just a recovery support specialist helping people. And
I love that. I love that job title. And I think if I was back in North America, that'd be what I was doing, right? Most certainly, right? Right. So, of course, I moved here so I could afford to do this full time.
Right. So, and you can off the pennies that you get. Hopefully you're making more than pennies soon.
Yeah. That's an amazing, like, how blessed am I to be here and living this and doing this full time. And, it's a lot of work, as you know, we've talked plenty about that. Right. But, I think what you're doing is wonderful. It disturbs me though. And I'm going to zone in on it. Maybe I shouldn't do this, zone in on the negative, but I'm going to anyway. The people that don't have Medicaid can't get Medicaid because they don't have an address or whatever, right? And that's
there's qualification, like you have to have a kid, or you have to be. Tennessee is a very red state, and so it's not. It's just unfortunate they won't do what's called expansion, which is, I mean, there's so many people need stuff. Yeah. And so right. It's but other places, like when I was in Utah, everybody could get Medicaid. It was wonderful. Chicago, New York, California. I mean, it's just, that becomes all about politics and what are the people voting for and who's in office. So that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. It is unfortunate, right? Because some people want to help and others are like, I want my money to go towards something else.
So, and I'll talk about that. Dr. Lisa is my co-host, who I'm sure you've seen anyway. I know you haven't had a chance to meet. We'll do that one of these days. But
I would love to.
She often talks about a study that's been repeated in many countries around the world. Every dollar you put into treatment for addiction comes back to society 6 to 10 times.
Wow.
If you can imagine, right? Yeah. The costs, the savings to the penal system, savings to judicial system, to the police, to healthcare, to everything. Like, it's amazing.
Stores.
Yeah, right. But seriously, right? And those studies don't even take into effect the offshoots, the indirect costs that come as a result of addiction, right?
Right.
So to people that, when it is all about the money, and I'm not that person, you're not that person, but there's a massive portion, roughly half the population, it does come down to money, right? Even to those people, if we had the patience to invest in this a little bit longer term, you would see that it's actually financially, it's the responsible thing to do, is to help people get into treatment. Absolutely. It is very much, the responsible thing to do, right? So just for the money, even if you don't have a bleeding heart like you or me, just for the money, it makes sense to get people into treatment, right? So it's disturbing and frustrating sometimes to have these arguments, but it's the othering, as Mike from the Yatra Treatment Center here calls it. He's like, that's the othering. That's their problem. It's their thing. It's not going to happen to me. That's a personal favorite of mine, right? Saying, oh, you poor thing, right? Yeah, wait till it's your kids, because that does happen and happens all the damn time, right?
Right. It's just, it goes along with like people who think addicts don't deserve to be Narcan, and like there are people. I'll put a Narcan post up and just be completely disgusted at people saying, let them die. Let them die. Right. Yeah, are you a human being right now? Like, let them die? Yes, you can't find recovery if you're dead. But then it goes back to that thing we're talking about. When are you going to be ready? Because people are getting Narcan over and over again, but that's how powerful addiction is.
Yes, right. I mean? Like, you can't, that is not a healthy person making those choices to go, like, it's just not, right?
Right.
I'll tell you something that I started doing, Rachel. I don't know if I've ever showed you this or told you about it. When somebody makes that comment, let them die, or it's their choice, they chose that, I'll go to their Facebook profile and find a picture of them and their kids, and I will blur out the faces of the kids because I'm not a total asshole, and I'll reply with a comment that says, if it was them, would you say that?
Right.
I want to get people lit up.
So great. At least you blur the faces out.
But, yeah, and I don't have to, right? They're like, I'm going to call my local police. Go ahead. I did that as a courtesy to you, right? Because I have a bigger heart than you do, obviously, right? But but it's just so judgmental
and naiveness, like uneducated. Like, these people, they do not deserve to die. They're still somebody's child. They're still somebody's family member.
Absolutely, they're loved and they're
just mentally ill.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
It's a disease of the brain. So yeah. Let's move into the next topic. I'm just pulling them out of the air as we go here, but I'm going to pull up the meme. Of course, we talked about it already, but I'm gonna pull up the meme so I'm reading it correctly, right? Word for word here. So I posted a meme the other day that said, let me get this straight. The recovery community has spent the last 100 years trying to legitimize addiction as a disease. Then that same community shames people for treating that disease with medication prescribed by a doctor to the point where people feel the need to hide it from that community. So that's the meme. Of course, you shared it as well, so you're more than versed in it, but for the benefit of the audience, right? And of course, that's speaking to Matt, methadone, Suboxone, whatever, Sublocade, whatever Matt treatment we're going to talk about, right? But I think the recovery community, there's a subset of the recovery community that has failed drastically. There was a comment somebody posted on one of my posts a while back. I won't say it, I won't quote it directly because I don't remember, but the essence of it is that they were saying that to them, the recovery community is one of the most toxic things they've ever come across. They've spent years trying to get to where they are. They've almost died 100 times, and they can't find fellowship because people think that what they're doing is not valid, right?
Yeah,
and it was
wrong.
that's heartbreaking, right?
It's
if
wrong.
one person feels that way, we have fucked up. Sorry for the language. We have failed, right? We have failed. As a community. And I think what bothers me is that these days, if you shame another human being for their path being different and they go back out, the odds of them coming back are less than they've ever been in the history of mankind, right? Like it's not like it was 20 years ago where they're going to go get drunk and they're going to get another fight with their wife and they're going to lose their job. Now, if somebody goes back out, they die.
You're dying.
Right. You know,
they're dying.
And I don't know if you want to touch on that. Obviously, we know how I feel on it. I think I know how you feel, but I won't put words in your mouth. So go ahead.
Well, and there's this expression that just kind of came to mind when you said that. And it, in recovery and in the rooms and in the communities, we're not supposed to be the judge and the jury. And that's what people are doing. We are judging and we are being the jury and we're convicting people. And it's like, we came here to learn, to love, and to heal, and we're judging every single thing somebody's doing. He came in with his shirt wrinkly. Let's talk about what he's doing. Now, dude, listen, if you're on Suboxone and you're in a meeting and you're doing the freaking nod, you might need to figure some things out. But if you're living a completely healthy life, you're going to school, you have full custody of your parents, or you're going to work every day, you're hitting all these family events, you're living the life that you dreamed of when you were out there using pilt back on a freaking park bench. Who am I to judge what's working for you? You know, I know plenty of people who drink a glass of wine here and there, smoke some medical cannabis, that take Suboxone, and their lives are wonderful. Yeah. If you're not if you're active in your disease and you're abusing, that's a whole different story. But we're not to be the judge and jury, and that's what the rooms are doing. They are judging. They're judging, and they're pushing people out. They're killing people.
Yeah, you're right.
People are dying.
And it sounds dramatic to maybe some, especially if people aren't involved in the community. That sounds dramatic. I think to me it doesn't, though. 100%. Right? If somebody goes back out, they die. And it happens. Something that I've said lately a lot is that we are experiencing death at a higher rate than anything in human history outside of war and plague. Nothing has done what fentanyl is doing to society that wasn't a war or a plague. Right? So why the hell are we acting why are we not acknowledging that and changing our behaviors? Right? And I appreciate that. Maybe that community's been that way for 100 years. And you know, they've got these rigid, some people have this rigid thing, but excuse me, the spirit of everything that is said in those traditions was not meant to be leaving people shamed and pushed out. It's the one place you can find fellowship easily. Right? Have you been to a meeting? Is the instant response from everybody in recovery or not. That is, have you been to a meeting, right? Can you get to a meeting? Are you going to meetings? It's become, as you know, it's whatever. It is the thing that people do. It's the place people go to look for fellowship. And if you can't find it there, come on, right? It's just not okay. It's just not, right? You know,
it's a very judgmental space, and I know so many people who have gone out who are so afraid to come back because of that. because of the shame, because of that. I mean, we've talked about recovery dates, and people don't want to come back because they don't want to lose their dates. I mean, and I'm not saying those things are wrong. Like, I cherish my recovery date, but I share it, but I also understand, like, the times I relapsed, I didn't want to do the walk of shame, and people disappear on you.
Yeah, they do.
And people
right?
people are dying,
Yes,
and that's
right.
just the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is. And I love that. Yeah. I love that you brought up recovery dates, right? Well, and you saw me when I said 19 months, I had to, I actually looked at the bottom of my screen to see, right, what the date was. Cause I really don't keep track of it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't, I do when it's coming up on a date, and I know the date because it's the day my father died, but I'm like, I just want to live for today. I don't even want to I don't want to count. I just want to today's a day, man. Right.
Just love your day.
Yeah. So I've kind of taken on a different thing. That said, I'm real cocky about it until I was 2 weeks away from my 1 year. And then all of a sudden I was like, now I'm counting, aren't I? Right. So yeah, I can talk all this shit. I can talk all I want about, I don't count recovery dates. Right. And then tell you what, coming up 2 weeks, it was like 2 weeks to the day. Right.
You should have it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. I started counting in a hurry. I tell you that much. Right. And it was really funny. So much in that day. It was a Saturday. So it was a weekend ramble day for me. And a guest, unknowing that was my day, that was my anniversary, had backed out last minute. So there I was left on my 1 year date without anybody to do my episode with. And I was really I was bummed out. Right. So I actually, Chantel from Trap House Testimonies, I zoned in on her. I was like, hey, Chantel, I need you to step up. It's my 1 year and I got nobody. So she jumped right on. Isn't she though? Isn't she?
Yeah.
She's messaging me right now. She's about to go on the news actually.
Yeah.
She's going live in 40 minutes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, good for her. Right. But I absolutely love Chantel, and she's from the same part of the world as me. So, actually the Trap House in Trap House Testimonies was a block away from the last place I lived. Right.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
yeah, we barely missed each other on the streets kind of thing. We were a few months kind of separated from each other.
Yeah.
And my mom's a huge fan of Chantel. So she's the one that connected us. Actually, I'll tell you a funny story. I'll tell you a funny story about her. There's somebody who shares her name in the same city that we were both in. Neither, she doesn't live there now, neither do I. There's somebody that shares her name exactly. Right. Well, the first name might be spelled different. So when my mom said to me, have you checked out this Chantel? I was like, I know her, and no, that's bad news. No, she's like, no, it can't possibly be. I'm like, Mom, I'm telling you, right? 6 months ago, there was a thing that happened, and no, I want nothing to do with that. As it turns out. And so when I talked to Chantel, she was, we figured it out that,
there is another one. There's person. Another her, but it's not her.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And she's not
right?
well.
Yeah. Right. So, well, maybe she is now. I hope she is. Right. I don't know.
Hope so too. And we'll pray on that.
Right. But it was kind of a funny situation. And when I first reached out to Chantel, she was in the middle of absolute chaos in her life. And she wasn't sure who I was. So she was like, it took me a long time to connect with her. But then once we did, we became, we talk daily now. Right. So yeah. I love her. She's just got this.
She's great. She's doing, I love her.
She's got a unique brand. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Some of the things she says are just, I actually made a GIF. I made a GIF of my Phoenix doing this, putting the hand over the eyes, right? At one point. Yeah. This is for Chantel, and it said FFS Chantel, right? For fuck Chantel. Yeah. I've since lost it somewhere on my computer, but yeah. She is. I love her to death, right? Yeah. But what else? What else do you want to talk about? Well, we got each other's attention. What's next?
I mean, I think that let's just, I don't know, blessings. My life is, we could talk just about the joys and some wins that I've had over the past 7 years.
Let's do that.
Well, so very small backstory. I have been homeless multiple times because of my addiction. My family deserted me. When I got sober this time, it was everybody told my mom, Rachel's going to get out of jail and do the exact same thing she always does. So you got to just let her go back to the streets. When we tell you everybody gave up on me, and God told my mom this was different, and it was. And so I went from full on supervised visits with my kids to having zero custody. During COVID, I regained full custody of my children, which was huge. My kid's dad had full custody. I was able to move across the country with them and know that, and everybody knows that they're safe. These little joys, I posted it this morning. I wish I could sleep in, right? I have a 3-day weekend. I want to sleep till 9 o'clock one day of my freaking life, but it's not going to ever happen because I have this blessing that I get to take my 15-year-old to work on the weekends. And
You're
at
kidding,
6:45, I'm waking up and I'm going and driving her to McDonald's, and it's like I never go back to sleep. I'm not that lucky person that could come home after that and go back to sleep and take a nap. That just ain't my world.
Yeah.
But these little blessings that I have today, like going and picking my kids up. My kid, 3 weeks ago, crashed her car just up the street from my house. I think you guys were a part of that whole thing.
Yes.
But I was sober. It was Friday night. It was 10:30 at nighttime, and old me would have missed all of that. I wouldn't have answered the phone because I would have been drunk and ridiculous. I wouldn't have been able to jump in my car and go and save her in the scariest moment of her life. I mean, it was so funny. I have COPD and I'm like running down the street. I'm like trying to freaking I'm like, this isn't working and this isn't working. And all these but that was the worst part of it. Like I was 100% healthy and I went and to those scariest, her car spun like 4 times. That lady who hit her it was crazy. And like, I have all these little things that I get to do today. Like my kids used to know the mom who said, oh, I'm going to come pick you up and go school shopping and then never hear from me again because I was in jail. And then they had the mom who was always calling from jail. And if somebody would let me talk to them, I was just hysterically bawling because I loved them so much. Like ridiculous. Like nobody should have let me talk to them because I was crying. It must have been so hard for them.
No
and
kidding,
like,
right? Yeah.
It just awful. And my kid today was like, Mama, she's so sweet. Just, what do you want to do for Memorial Weekend? I know you're going to be home alone. And she has her little boyfriend she wants to go hang out with. And she's like, I want to make sure I spend some time with you before she goes and leaves me for the whole freaking weekend. But, those are joys. Like, people depend on me today to show up. Like, I get a car that I drive to and from work. It's like a 2024 Nissan Sentra. It's like souped up turbo edition. It's so dope. Nice. Right? I have a credit card from my company that they trust me with. That has, there's a spending limit on there. They don't trust us all that much, but but that's fine. I never go over my limit. They trust me to have this vehicle. They trust me with laptops and things. Like, that's huge for me because I couldn't even keep a phone at one point.
Right.
I couldn't, because somebody was stealing it and something bad was always happening. And I went from this world of misery to like, I'm the most ridiculously happiest person in the whole entire world. And
there's that vibe that kind of drew me to you, to say the least, right off the get-go. I do love that. And
I just am. And like at work, some of the girls are always like, Rachel, why are you so happy? And I'm like, I have my children. I have a job. I have a home. I know I'm going to go buy food or spend money on whatever I want. I can take it. My life is wonderful today. Even with a bad record. Like now I get paid just to they're like, I'm like, I have some things on my record. Do you guys could do a background check? And they're like, we're a peer support. We're aware. We know you're going to have a record. It's
you wouldn't be much of a peer if you didn't. Let's be honest, right? So right.
So there's just blessing after blessing. Like people trust me today. Like I can go in a room and people aren't holding their purse. People aren't scared. They do. Some people judge me with the tattoos and all, but like, it's a different type of thing.
For
now they're just like, but it's still, and I'm like, it's getting worse. We're getting more.
Absolutely right. It's funny that you mentioned that. I know, for me, of course, I don't have anybody trusting me with a bunch of stuff because it's just not logistically, it's not a part of my life. However, for a correlation there, my mother, I wouldn't ask my mom for $20 for most of for my entire life ever. Right. For her, like, to lend me money now, there was a time a few months back, I needed $600 for rent, like today, didn't even hesitate, just lent it to me. And I paid her back in 2 days. Ooh, the feeling for that was
Right?
just, oh, what an amazing thing to experience, right? What a difference. And just to have the family willing to help me out. And my mom does often these days, because, it's a grind where I'm at, right? But just to have her be like, well, yeah, right. But I still, if
Right?
I need help, like, there has to be a 3-page text, because I'm still like, I still feel like guilty asking for it. And, like, no, I've done this. And she's like, whatever, man. Right. Most of the time she
Yep.
sends it without even acknowledging that I've sent her the message. Right.
Right.
It's just like,
That's
whatever.
so
Right?
awesome.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. Right.
Yeah.
That the relationships, the friends and family that you get back. Oh, it's a wonderful thing. Right. So
It is. And it takes time, like there's the first couple years is going to drive me nuts. My necklace tangling. It took years before my dad and I could sit down in the same room, like before he could trust that I was not going to go disappear on my children and come home and lash out on the kids. And my twin sister and it took her and I years it was years. I hurt them for 20 years. Today, my dad will give me his car to go drive to Orlando. He'll give me his whole entire freaking wallet with all his credit cards, with whatever's in it. And he's like, go to the store and use my card. I'm like, I can use my card. And he's like, no, use mine. And I'm like, he's giving me the whole wallet. Like, and the 2024 freaking F-150. Like, should I come back? Yes, I'm coming back. And it used to be like, we're talking like, follow me to the bathroom. Everybody's listening and they have their cameras out to take pictures of what I look like, to send the whole entire family to just talk about how sick I was, to where I am today. Like, I'm in their home. They're in Montreal right now. Like, I'm here and they know I'm not going to have crazy parties. They're coming home to a house, and it's a beautiful place. Like, this time they didn't even well, we also live in another state, but they didn't tell me don't bring friends over. They didn't tell me all the other rules, because they now know, like, I just live a normal human, normal human being life. Like, I'm just not out running amok, moving people in while they're gone.
Right. And it's important that you said that, though. It does take time, because it took a long time to break that trust. It took a long time to get to the point where they were listening at the bathroom, or they were, doing those other things. So, and and what's more, and I'll speak, because the show does speak to the families quite a bit, and it's for the families. And something that I've had to come to terms with is that no matter what, for the rest of my mother's life, she is going to worry a little bit.
Yes.
Right. And she has to, right. And how unfair that is. And if you think about the years when I was in it, and it was most of my life, one way or another, right. When I'm clean, I get a break from it, and everybody gets to be proud of me. Like right now, like I have this podcast and everybody's happy, and, and they're proud and they're supportive and all those things. And I get to feel great. My mom's still worrying. If I relapse, I get to take a break from all the shitty feelings, because I get high. That's how I cope with shitty feelings. So I get a break from it, really. And my mom goes into a different kind of stress and worry. So it's for our parents and our loved ones in general. Like, there's a trauma there that happens over the course of sometimes decades.
Yeah.
That is so real and might not ever go away. It mitigates over time. Like you said, your parents now, they don't even, they leave and they don't have to give you the warnings, or they give you the car, they give you the wallet. But somewhere in the back of their mind, they're always going to be concerned, right? Good example of this, Rachel. When I left for Thailand, there's 2 days, I went into the city to go visit some friends, and there's 2 days, like, whatever, my phone died, and I was super, super, super tired, and whatever. I passed out. It was like a day and a half where I just didn't communicate with anybody. Holy cow.
Yeah, I bet.
Right. Dr. Lisa called me 25 or 30 times in that time. And I didn't even, what's funny is I didn't even realize it till like weeks later that she had called that many times. My mom was flipping out. So when I woke up and I turned my phone on, I was like, oh my God. Like, oh my God. Oh my God. The old me would have been defensive and shitty about that. But then it occurred to me, I was like, I'll never take that for granted again. These people are worried because they love me.
Isn't
right?
that
Like,
amazing?
yes, I will. And it's like, I couldn't get mad at that. There's no way I can get mad at that. I'm like, I'm sorry to you that, like, I'm really sorry. I did not mean to stress you out that way, right? To me, it didn't seem like it was a big deal, but it was a big deal. And it took me a long time to make that a big deal. And that's something that I have to be, aware of and acknowledge, right? So,
Right.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and the truth is, addiction is real. And when people disappear because of a relapse, we disappear for a reason.
yeah,
And so,
right.
7 years from now, Chuck, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure nobody's going to be calling you 35 times because you didn't answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But right now, it's still
yeah,
getting to know this version of you, and people, and yes, they're going to worry. They're always going to worry, but they're going to worry in a different light because
yes,
the new memories and the new feelings and the new things have all created themselves to where that fear has been replaced with different types of things. Now it's just going to be a, did you get in a car accident? Not a, did you go out and relapse? Or a bike accident?
right.
Did somebody steal? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Yeah,
And those,
yeah,
that takes
absolutely.
time to get there though. But it's,
the irony, and we talked about this just before I hit record. For the last 2 years of active addiction, it was the perceived lack of connection was the boot on my neck,
yes.
right? It was me thinking that I wasn't loved, worse feeling that I wasn't lovable, that kept me in addiction, right? Because you're just so ashamed, and you have a way to deal with those shitty feelings, and it turns into this snake eating its tail thing. And so the irony is that look how loved I am, right? But addiction doesn't want you to think that way. Addiction doesn't want you to know that you're loved, right? Certainly doesn't want you to feel lovable, because it gets to stick around if you don't feel those things, right? So yeah,
and it can reel you back in so quickly because it just takes one little thing. I mean, and you know this, like this positive outlook on life is so important in gratitude and those daily things, because it takes one negative thing to fester, and it's like a black hole. Absolutely. It is a black hole that if you feed that sucker, you are going down and down and down. And it is a mindset of, I'm not going to let that take control of me anymore. I am powerless 100%. Over that. I can't, that will not control me, whatever your feeling process is. And
yes,
it can get dark real quick. And absolutely, we have the power to overcome that. But that's hard in itself.
Yeah, you just did a perfect thing. Brings us to my favorite part of the show. That's the daily gratitudes. So, boom.
Yes.
You just handled the segue for me. Look at that. So, what you got for some daily gratitudes today, Rachel?
My gratitude list is endless. I'm grateful for my job. I'm grateful for my kids, for my dog. I'm grateful today that I know, for my spirituality. I'm grateful for friends like you, who I know I can trust to tell me what time it is. I drove Chuck nuts. When do we go on? Tell me the exact minute. How long is it? 45 minutes from now? But I'm grateful for real, authentic friendships. Like we've created that with our little group of people we have, like Haley. Lord knows I'm so freaking grateful for her.
Yes.
I'm just grateful for the people that I've met, even more so. I mean, in the last 7 years, I've met so many amazing people, but right now in my journey, I'm grateful for the ones that are here and they're present, because they're changing my life.
Every day.
It's just amazing.
I'm going to echo one there for Haley specifically, and for so much, but Haley specifically, getting that news the other day, not needing a liver. And for anybody who's not familiar with that, and I'm sure many of you are not, 499 days of sobriety, believing she needs a liver transplant, waiting for that, and the stress that goes along with it, to finding out she no longer needs a liver transplant.
Amazing.
Can you imagine the overwhelming sense of relief and gratitude that comes with that? Right? Like I was just, when I read that, it was like instant tears of just like, really? Like, how amazing is that? And did you see her response to me, the message?
Yes.
I loved it. You doubt if there's a God, he's real, right?
Yes.
Just like, wow.
Right. I guess so. I mean, she's end-stage liver disease and zero liver with no chance of it regenerating, and like some miraculous miracle, her liver's coming back, and that it's a miracle.
How does that? Yeah, that's so amazing. And I'm very grateful that she's got to experience that. Right. I'm grateful for you for coming on. Finally, we get the chance to connect and have this conversation. It's been coming for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm always grateful for my dumb dog here at my feet. It's Sunny.
Mine's right here.
Yes. I'm very grateful to a follower who bought me a phone, which should be here tomorrow. So I'm really excited for that. Finally, it's been months without one. And I'm grateful to every single person who continues to like, watch, comment, share, talk about the show, do the things, hit the buttons down at the bottom. You know what they are. Every time you do these things, you're getting me a little bit closer to living my best life. My best life is to continue making a humble living, spreading the message. The message is this. If you're in active addiction right now, today could be the day. Today could be the day that you start a lifelong journey. Reach out to a friend, reach out to a family member, call into detox, go to church, pray. I don't care. Do whatever it is you got to do to get that journey started. It is so much better than the alternative. If you have a loved one who's suffering an addiction right now, you've just taken the time to listen to our conversation. You just take one more minute out of your day and text that person. Let them know they are loved. Use the words.
You are loved.
That little glimmer of hope just might be the thing that brings them back. Boom.